questions. Closed captioning will be visible in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Program containing the order of show will be emailed to every registered attendee very shortly. Now, we had help from a lot of people along the way to make this event happen. And we want to say thank you so much to Admiral Clarity Oxler, to Fern Billett, to Jim Grassi, Ben DeLuca, Alicia Zimmer, Bridget Murnahan, Ralph DeLucia, Peter Montesino, who's just been terrific, and Paula Crawford Gamble of the Penn Veterans Care Excellence, who provided the original inspiration for this program. A huge hug to our director, Michael Toner, a virtual hug, who has given of himself so selflessly and of his time. And he's also worked very hard to make this program happen. And most importantly, to the veterans performing tonight, for most of whom this is their first experience in theatrical performance. It has been my greatest pleasure getting to know you all, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your stories. And finally, this disclaimer. The views presented here do not represent those of the Department of Veterans Affairs or the U.S. government. Enjoy the show.
Dulce et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed and coughing like hags, we cursed through the sludge. Till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and toward our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but all limped on, bloodshod. All went lame, all blind. Drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shells dropping softly behind. Gas! Gas! Quick, boys, an ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time, and someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes in thick green light, as under a green sea, I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face like a devil's sick of sin, if you could hear at every jolt the blood come gurgling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud, of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie, dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori. Wilfred Owen was an English poet and soldier. He is recognized as a leading poet of World War I. As a second lieutenant, he served the Manchester Regiment. He died in 1918, 1 week before the armistice.
In Afghanistan, Homesick by Brian McNew. In this piece, he tells of his journeys and the differences between aloneness and loneliness. Lover, I love you, I love you, I love you. Even agreements that place me above you crumble in certain ways, certain lights, some days. Nights, I have mountains, monotonous relays, beauty in bullet point dust and shrill terror, lives I can end by intent or by error. Nothing as real as the dream that you gave me, death trap apartment, the countertop heavy. Sag so we can't even open the drawers, laminate tile rotting up from the floors, not very different from this place in some ways. Maybe not different at all, but the thought stays.
The Odyssey by Homer, translated by Emily Wilson. Book 3. An Old King Remembers. Telemachus is searching for his father Odysseus. He arrives in Pylos and questions King Nestor about Odysseus. Leaving the ocean's streams, the sun leapt up into the sky of bronze to shine light for gods and mortals on the fertile earth. Telemachus arrived in Pylos, where the Pylians were bringing to the beach black bulls for blue Poseidon, lord of earthquakes. The goddess with the flashing eyes, Athena, first led Telemachus on shore, then spoke. Do not be shy, Telemachus. You sailed over the sea to ask about your father, where the earth hides him, what his fate might be. So hurry now to Nestor, lord of horses. Learn what advice he has in mind for you. Supplicate him yourself, and he will tell you the truth. He is not one to tell a lie. They reached the center of the town, where Nestor was sitting with his sons and his companions, putting the meat on spits and roasting it for dinner. When they saw the strangers coming, they all stood up with open arms to greet them, inviting them to join them. And then they cooked the outer parts of meat and helped themselves to pieces, sharing round the glorious feast till they could eat no more. Then first Gerenian Nestor, horse lord, spoke. Now that our guests are satisfied with food, time now to talk to them and ask them questions. Strangers, who are you? Where did you sail from? Are you on business or just scouting around like pirates on the sea, who risk their lives to ravage foreign home? Telemachus was thoughtful but not shy. Athena gave him the confidence deep in his heart to ask about his absent father and to gain a noble reputation for himself. Great Nestor, son of Neleus, he said. You ask where I am from? I will be frank. I come from Ithaca, beneath Mount Neon. My business here is personal, not public. I came to gather news about my father, long-suffering Odysseus. They say he fought with you to sack the town of Troy. We know the place where all the other men who battled with the Trojans lost their lives. But Zeus still keeps Odysseus' fate in darkness. No one knows where he was lost. Maybe some hostile men killed him on land, or he was drowned in Amphitrite's waves. I beg you, tell me, did you see him die? With your own eyes? Or have you any news about where he may be? He must be lost. His mother surely bore him for misfortune. You need not sweeten it what you say in pity or from embarrassment. Just tell me straight what your eyes saw of my noble father. If ever he made promises to you and kept his word at Troy, in times of trouble, remember those times now. Tell me the truth. Gerenian Nestor, horse lord, answered him. Dear boy, you call to mind how much we suffered with strong, unyielding hearts in distant lands, led by Achilles on a hunt for spoils, and when we fought around the mighty city of Priam. Our best warriors were killed. Ajax lies dead there, and there lies Achilles. There lies his godlike friend and guide, Patroclus. My own strong, matchless son lies dead there too, Antilochus, who fought and ran so well. More pain, more grief, our sufferings increased. Who could recount so many losses? Odysseus, your father, if you really are his son, well, no one dared to try to equal him in cleverness. That man was always best at every kind of trick. And seeing you, I am amazed at how you talk like him. One would not think so young a man could do it. Well, back in Troy, Odysseus and I always agreed in councils with one mind. We gave the Argives all the best advice. After we conquered Priam's lofty town, the god dispersed the ships of the Achaeans. Zeus planned a bitter journey home for us, since some of us had neither sense nor morals. My friend and I set sail with all good speed. A god had made the choppy sea lie calm. Your father's plans were always flexible. His men turned round their prows and sailed right back to make their peace again with Agamemnon. But I assembled all my fleet and fled. I understood some god must mean us harm. Safely across wide waters. The fourth day, the men of Diomedes moored their ships at Argos. I kept going on to Pylos. The wind the god had sent kept holding strong the whole way home. So, my dear boy, I have no news about what happened next. I do not know which of them has died and who is safe. But I can tell you what I heard sitting here in my halls. You ought to know. They say Achilles' son led home the Myrmidons, and Philoctetes came back home with glory. And Idomeneus, he led back his crew to Crete. No man who has survived the war was lost at sea. And Agamemnon, you must have heard, though you live far away, Aegisthus murdered him, but he has paid a bitter price. How fortunate the dead man had left a son to take revenge upon the wicked, scheming killer, that Aegisthus who killed Orestes' father. My dear boy, I see that you are tall and strong. Be brave, so you will be remembered. Thoughtfully, Telemachus replied, Your Majesty, King Nestor, yes, Orestes took revenge. The Greeks will make him famous through the world and into future times. I wish the gods would grant me that much power against those men who threaten and insult me. Those cruel suitors. The gods have not yet granted us this blessing, my father and myself. We must endure.
O'Flaherty, V.C. This play, written in 1915 by George Bernard Shaw, was meant to be a recruiting poster, but turned out somewhat the opposite. Here, Private Dinny O'Flaherty, an Irish country lad, having won the Victoria Cross in battle during World War I, Britain's highest military honour, returns to Ireland to help General Sir Piers Madigan recruit more Irishmen. His speech here reflects the difference between an enlisted man's experience of war and that of the general.
A monologue from O'Flaherty, V.C. by George Bernard Shaw. Good morning to you, Sir Piers. Well, you see, I'm in a bit of a fix, sir. What am I going to do when my mother comes here to see her son in all his glory with the Victoria Cross? And she after thinking it was against the English I was fighting. I told her that I was going to fight for the French and for the Russians. And who ever heard of the French or the Russians doing anything to the English but fighting them? She mustn't find out. She'd take the skin off my back if she ever let on that I had any other king than Parnell. Explain to her what the war is all about. Ah, sir, how the devil do I know what the war's about? Asking your pardon, Sir Piers, I know quite well why I killed the Germans. I killed them because I was afraid that if I didn't, they'd kill me. Patriotism means different to me than it would to you, sir. To me and to the likes of me, It means talking about the English the way the English papers talk about the Germans. And what good has it ever done here in Ireland? It's kept me ignorant and it's kept Ireland poor. Because instead of trying to better ourselves, we thought we were fine fellows of patriots when we were speaking evil of Englishmen who were as poor as ourselves and maybe as good as ourselves. The Germans I killed were more knowledgeable than me. And what better am I now that I've killed them? What better is anybody? I don't know about it being a great war, sir. It's a big war, but that's not the same thing. Father Quinlan's new church is a big church. You might take the little old chapel out of the middle of it and not miss it. But my mother says that there's more true religion in that old chapel. And the war has taught me that maybe she's right. Sure, what's the Victoria Cross to me? Do you not think I don't know that there's hundreds of men as brave as me? I've learned more than you think, sir. But how would a gentleman like you know what an ignorant, conceited creature I was when I went from here into the wide world as a soldier? What's the use in all the lying and the pretending and the humbugging and the letting on? When the day comes to you that your comrade is killed in the trench next to you, and you don't even as much as look at him until you trip over his body, and then all you say is to ask why the stretcher bearers didn't take it out of the way. Don't talk to me or any soldier of war being right. No war is right. And all the holy water that Father Quinlan ever blessed couldn't make it right. There, sir, now you know what O'Flaherty DC thinks. And you're wiser so than the others that only knows what he's done. Good day, sir.
When Will I Come Home by Jen Cole. In this piece, she let her PTSD symptoms shine through. A truck drives down the country road by my house. A simple black and white dump truck kicking up dry earth as it passes. An innocuous event that ignites my nightmare in a flash. Without warning, I'm there. Standing at the front gate of Camp Griffin in Baghdad. Dry grass sways with the push of hot air, and I hear familiar sounds of gunfire and lurid screams. I smell dry desert air tainted with camel shit and burning fires as fear overcomes me. I shake my head to end the terrorizing flashback. Will I ever feel safe? Suddenly I'm back in my kitchen, listening to the calming sounds of a creek. Tears stinging my eyes as I try to fight off the disturbing thoughts. I've become engaged by the abrupt change in my mood. Smile drops from my face as grief and anguish set in. The loss of a friend pounds into me as though he died again today. Iraqis I was unable to save echo their screams into my mind. Will my war ever end? Looking out my kitchen window, I watch the green American grass melt into desert sands of Iraq. Holding on to the counter, begging not to be sucked into war again. I rationalize that I'm in upstate New York now, not fighting a phantom war. My soul constantly pacing between today and Iraq. Lost between the two borderless worlds blending into one another, making it nearly impossible to distinguish between past and present. I am never fully living today because I died there. Will I ever come home?
This poem is about a prayer for death and life. It's written by Judy Strott. Judy is neither a veteran nor a teacher or scholar of the Vietnam War, but her and her husband Jerry were big supporters of the Vietnam soldiers. This poem is about an old soldier looking to die and a Vietnam soldier looking for a reason to live with post-traumatic stress disorder. It's called A Prayer for Death and Life. For one, I pray that death will come to take him in the night, for he no longer wants to live. He has given up the fight. I pray for death to take him, yet he still lives on, while others only half his age have died and now are gone. He's so old. He's lived his life. He's nearly 90 now. He is weak and frail. He cannot walk. His back is bent, head bowed. His wife had gone before him, and he cannot figure why. God makes him keep on living and will not let him die. For one, I pray that death will come. For one, I pray for life. For one, I pray he overcomes the demons and the dreams that haunts his sleeps and torments him with silent Debbie screams. The memories he can't forget that fill him with such dread that daily he decides between the living and the dead. For one, I pray that something can entreat him to remain, to try again for one more day, to live with all his pain, till all the suffering of the past can finally fade away, and a sweet peace overflows his cup. Lord, help him decide to stay.
This reading is from Book 16 of The Odyssey by Homer, translated by Emily Wilson. In the opening scene, Odysseus' son Telemachus is returning home after unsuccessfully searching for Odysseus, who has not returned from the Trojan War. Telemachus is being warmly welcomed back home by Eumaeus, the faithful slave and swineherd, who Telemachus calls Grandpa. The swineherd introduces the boy to the stranger, who actually is his father, Odysseus, in disguise. This is the first time Telemachus is meeting his father. He was only an infant when Odysseus left for war. At dawn, the swineherd and Odysseus made breakfast, lit the fire, and sent the herdsmen out with the pigs that they had rounded up. The dogs, who as a rule would bark at strangers, were quiet when they saw Telemachus. They panted at him. When Odysseus saw how they acted and heard footsteps coming, he said, "Eumaeus, someone must be coming, a friend or somebody you know. The dogs are friendly with no barking. I can hear footsteps." He hardly finished when his son, his own dear son, was there inside the gate. Amazed, the swineherd jumped up, letting fall the cups in which he had been mixing wine. It spilled. He ran towards his master, kissed his face and shining eyes, and both his hands, and wept. Just as a father, when he sees his own dear son, his only son, his dear, most precious boy, return from foreign lands after 10 years of grieving for his loss, welcomes him, so the swineherd wrapped his arms around godlike Telemachus and kissed him, as if he were returning from the dead. With tears still in his eyes, he said, "Sweet light, you have come back, Telemachus. I thought that I would never see you any more after you sailed to Pylos. My dear child, come in. Let me enjoy the sight of you, now you are back. Come in. You do not often come to the countryside to see us herders. You stay in town to watch that evil horde of suitors." And Telemachus replied warily, "Grandpa, yes, I will come in. I came to see you here with my own eyes, and here is mother still stays in the house, or if some other man has married her already, and Odysseus's bed is empty, full of ugly spider webs. The swineherd, the commander, said, Indeed, her heart is loyal. She is in your house, weeping by night and sad by day. He took Telemachus' sword. The boy came in, crossing the stony threshold, and his father offered his seat. Telemachus refused, saying, Use it, dear stranger. I can find a chair around my hut. The slave can help. Odysseus went back and sat back down. Telemachus turned to the noble swineherd. Tell me, Grandpa, where did this stranger come from? By what route did the sailors bring him here, and who were they? He surely did not walk to Ithaca. Eumaeus answered, I will tell you, child, he is from Crete. He says he wandered lost through many towns, so some god spun his fate. Now he has run away from the Thesprotians who brought him, and arrived here on my farm. He is all yours, your suppliant, to treat however you desire. Telemachus said anxiously, This news of yours, Telemachus, this news of yours, Eumaeus, is very worrying to me. How can I invite him to my house? I am too young to fight with my fist if someone picks a fight with me. But since this man has come here to your house, I will dress him up in fine clothes, cloak and tunic, and sandals for his feet, and give a sword, and help him on his way. I will not let him go to meet the suitors. They are much too violent. I would be mortified if they abused him. It would be difficult for one man, even a strong one, to do anything to them. They are too many. Then Odysseus said, My friend, it is my duty to speak out when I hear the dreadful things those suitors have been doing in your house, against your will. It breaks my heart. If only I had youth to match my will. I wish I were the son of great Odysseus, or that I were the man himself, returned home from wandering. We can still hope. Let someone chop my head off if I would not destroy them when I came inside the palace of Odysseus. Telemachus said soberly, I will explain the situation to you, stranger. All those who hold command in rocky Ithaca have come to court my mother, wasting all my wealth. She does not refuse the awful prospect of remarriage, nor can she end the courtship. They keep eating, consuming my whole house, and soon they may destroy me too. These things lie with the gods. Now, Grandpa, you must hurry to the queen and tell her I am safe back home from Pylos. I will stay here while you tell her, just her, since many people want to plot my death. At that, the swineherd tied his sandals on and started off towards the town. Athena noticed him leaving from the yard and stood beside him as a woman, tall and skillful and beautiful. Odysseus could see her, standing beside the entrance to the cottage. Telemachus could not. The gods were not equally visible to everyone. The dogs could see her, but they did not bark. They whimpered and slunk back across the room in fear. She raised her eyebrows. With a nod, he understood and came out past the wall and stood beside her. Then Athena told him, Odysseus, great strategist, it is time for your son to know the truth. Together you have to plan how you will kill the suitors. Then both of you go into town. I will join you there soon myself. Indeed, I am itching to fight. And then Athena touched him, using a golden wand, and dressed him up in fine clean cloak and tunic, and she made him taller and younger looking, and he became tanned, and his cheeks filled out, and on his chin the beard grew dark. And so her work was done, and off she flew. Odysseus went in. His son was startled and looked down, afraid, in case it was a god. His words flew out. "Stranger, you look so different from before. Your clothes, your skin. I think you must be some god who has descended from the sky. Be kind to us, and we will sacrifice and give you golden treasure. Pity us." Long-suffering Odysseus replied, "I am no god. Why would you think such things? I am your father, the same man you mourn. It is because of me these brutal men are hurting you so badly." Then he kissed his son and cried, tears pouring down his cheeks. He had been holding back till then. The boy did not yet trust it really was his father and said, "No, you are not Odysseus, my father. Some god must have cast a spell to cause me further pain. No mortal man could manage such a thing by his own wits, becoming old and young again, unless some god appeared and did it all with ease. You certainly were old just now, wearing those dirty rags. Now you look like a god." Artful Odysseus said sharply, "No, Telemachus, you should not be surprised to see your father. It is me. No other is on his way. I am Odysseus. I suffered terribly, and I was lost. But after 20 years, I have come home. As for the way I look, Athena did it. The goddess can transform me as she likes. Sometimes a homeless beggar. Then she makes me look like a young man wearing princely clothes. For heavenly gods, it is not difficult to make a mortal beautiful or ugly." With that, he sat back down. Telemachus hurled his arms round his father, and he wept. They both felt deep desire for lamentation, and wailed with cries as shrill as birds, like eagles or vultures, when the hunters have deprived them of fledglings who have not yet learned to fly. That was how bitterly they wept.
Translations. In Brian Friel's play of 1980, the action takes place in the hid school of the townland of Ballybeg, County Donegal, Ireland in 1833. English is the mandatory language imposed on the Irish, though they continue to learn Irish, classical Greek and Latin, geography, history, etc. In the background to the play, an English soldier and an Irish lass have gone outside their tribes and fallen in love with each other. The soldier has gone missing, and the English garrison army is laying the townland to waste. In this scene, head schoolmaster Hugh O'Donnell and his friend Jimmy Jack Cassie discuss they're going off to war in 1798 against the English, Jimmy Jack's upcoming nuptials to the goddess Pallas Athena, and symbolically a future rising against the occupiers of Ireland. Barbarus sum hic ego sum, quia non intelligor uli. James? Procede? Indeed. Manus, tea. Strong tea, black. James? And a slice of soda bread. You're going to get married. Oh, well. At Christmas. Oh, splendid. Who? To Athena? Pallas Athena? Glaucopis Athenae? Flashing-eyed, Flashing-eyed. The lady has assented. She asked you And you assented? What? When was this? Last night. What does her mother say? Meet us from Hellespont. Decent people. Good stock. And her father? You're meeting Zeus tomorrow. Well, of course I'll be your best man. Honoured, James. Profoundly honoured. I know. I know what you're looking for. You mean to say? I know you joke like the rest of them. I myself. What? Yeah, I do know all that. But what you're really looking for is what? What is it, James? Companionship, company, someone to talk to. Sure. Away up in Buon Nagigia there. I'm sure I have no idea how lonely it is. Companionship. Correct. And you did always like her. Correct, James. Someone to talk to, right. And that's all, is it? The whole story. Yeah, I do know it all, Jimmy Jack. I know it all. Sure. The road to Sligo. Spring morning. 1798. Going into battle. Do you remember, James? Two young gallants with pikes across their shoulders and the Aeneid in their pockets. Everything seemed to find definition that spring. A congruence, a miraculous matching of hope and past and present, and a possibility. Striding across the fresh green land, the rhythms of perception heightened. The whole enterprise of consciousness accelerated. We were gods that morning, James. And I had recently married my goddess, Kathleen Dove de Rocktoyle. May she rest in peace. And to leave her and my infant son in his cradle, that was heroic too. By God, sir, we were magnificent. We marched as far as, where was it? Clenties. All of 23 miles in one day. And it was there, in Phelan's pub, that we got homesick for Athens. Just like Ulysses. The desiderium nostrorum, the need for our own. Our pietas, James, was for older, quieter things. And that was the longest 23 miles back I ever made. My friend, confusion is not an ignoble condition. What's that, James? Do I know the Greek word endogamine? Of course I do. It means to marry within the tribe. And the word exogamine, it means to marry outside the tribe. Well, you're right, you don't cross those borders casually. Both sides get very, very angry. Now your problem is what? Is Athena sufficiently mortal, or are you sufficiently godlike for the marriage to be acceptable to her people and to my people? You think about that. Well, I will. I will, James. Orbs antiqua fuit. There was an ancient city which 'tis said Juno loved above all the lands. And it was the goddess's aim and cherished hope that here should be the capital of all nations, should the fates perchance allow that. Yet in truth she discovered that a race was springing from Trojan blood to overthrow someday these Tyrian towers. A people late regem belloque superbum, kings of broad realms and proud in war, who would come forth for Libya's downfall. Such was the course. Such was the course ordained by fate. What the hell's wrong with me? Sure, I know it backways. I'll begin again. Urbs antiqua fuit. There was an ancient city which 'tis said Juno loved above all the lands. And it was the goddess's aim and cherished hope that here should be the capital of all nations, should the fates perchance allow that. Yet in truth she discovered that a race was springing from Trojan blood, to overthrow someday these Tyrian towers. A people kings of broad realms and proud in war, who would come forth, Libya's downfall.
Yellow Ribbon by Emily Yates. In this poem, this young lady has similar experiences as Odysseus. Take that yellow ribbon off your car. Take that waving flag off your door. Don't act like you understand what we're fighting for. Take that fake concern off your face. Take the handshake and just move along. Stop appreciating me for what I've done wrong. And take that yellow ribbon off your car. You tell me I went to liberate, so when I come home you celebrate. But you can't bring back the dead by throwing a parade. You tell me I made my nation proud. I wish you wouldn't say it so damn loud. My boots were on the ground while your head was in the clouds. So take that yellow ribbon off your car. When you tuck your children in at night, don't tell them for freedom that we fight. Let them know that there's a war on, but don't tell them their side's right. And take that yellow ribbon off your car. Don't pay for my meals. Don't give me special deals unless you want to hear about the way that I feel. Don't make me your hero. Just lend me your ear. Oh, and wipe the tears that I cry while I apologize for that goddamn yellow ribbon on your car.
Hello, my name is Jim McGowan. This is an original piece I wrote, inspired by Jonathan Shay's Odysseus in America. I am a Vietnam combat veteran. I served in the 4th Infantry Division, 1st in the 12th Battalion, Bravo Company, from 1968 to 1969 in Pleiku, South Vietnam. My writing is home without husband or father. Odysseus' wife Penelope and son Telemachus have for 10 years knowing the Trojan War is over and that Odysseus made it out of Troy alive. But where is he? Amazingly, I asked the same question of myself. I made it out of Vietnam alive. But where am I? I am home, but am I really? I am out of Vietnam, but as a combat veteran, Vietnam is never really out of me. Somewhat like Odysseus, who finds himself bedded down with a lovely sea goddess, Calypso, on her distant island, where he is a castaway. Now, going back to my homecoming, my distant island is America, where in many aspects of my homecoming, I felt like I was a castaway. No one really understands me except for my brothers, who were Vietnam combat veterans themselves. So we, as Odysseus, went on a search, our last lap for home, to find the America we left. As Odysseus traveled to the island of the beautiful witch Circe, who turned all her guests but Odysseus into pigs. So America did this to my Vietnam brothers. He turned them all into baby killers and evil human beings. And as Odysseus persuaded Circe to restore his crew, we persuade America to understand our crew of brothers, that we are not baby evil pigs or baby killers. We are Americans, the same as you, thrown into a war that no one could ever understand why. A war that never ends for combat veterans when they come home. As Odysseus was a stranger in his own home, in his beggar's disguise. Only with his son playing along with the beggar's ruse were they able to defeat all the suitors who were laying claim to Odysseus's palace. So as we came home to our American palace, we as combat veterans, as Odysseus did, we pulled back our bow. And slowly but surely we strung that bow and shot our arrows and knocked down all the preconceptions of baby killers and evil Americans. And after 50 years, we as Vietnam combat veterans are restored to our rightful place as American combat soldiers. As Odysseus was restored to his rightful place as head of his palace. And like Odysseus, we, the Vietnam combat veterans, can say without a doubt, we gave everything we had. Some of us, our lives. God bless America.
Plato Told Him by E. Cummings. Plato told him he couldn't believe it. Jesus told him he wouldn't believe it. Lao Tse certainly told him, and General Yes Ma'am Sherman. And even, believe it or not, you told him. I told him. We told him. He didn't believe it. No, sir. It took a nipponized bit of the old 6th Avenue L in the top of his head. Tell him. E. Cummings was an American modernist poet. He served in World War I, volunteering as an ambulance driver. The poem read tonight refers to World War II.
The Silver Tassie. This monologue is from Act 4 of Sean O'Casey's 1928 play, The Silver Tassie. A tassie was a trophy cup awarded to athletes in various sports, as we see it done often in golf, etc. here. As a youth, Harry Hegan, the speaker, had won the Silver Tassie trophy 3 times for his Avondale Football Club, and also the hand of his fiancée, Jessie Tate, and he then went off to fight in World War I. But his hero's homecoming is a tragic one, as he has lost both legs in battle, as well as losing Jessie to his best friend, Barney Bagnall. The scene here takes place during a victory party at the football club.
A monologue from The Silver Tassie by Sean O'Casey. Napoo, home, Napoo. Not yet. I'm all right. I'll spend a little time longer in the belly of an hour, bulging out with merriment. When they drink to the club from the cup, the Silver Tassie, that I won 3 times for them, that was first filled to wet the lips of Jessie and me. I'm all right. My name is yet only a shadow on the roll of honour. Get the cup. I'll mind it here till you're ready to send it round to drink to the Avondales. On the table here beside me. Bring the cup. I'll mind it here on the table. Push your sympathies away from me, for I'll have none of it. Go on with the dancing and keep the ball rolling. Trumpets and drums, begin. Dance, dance, and dance. Sink into merriment again and sling your cares to God. Oh, dear God, I can't. I must rest. For a spell, here I will stay, then pack up my body and go. For mine is a life on the ebb, yours a full life on the flow. The first drink again for me, alone this time. For the shell that hit me burst forever between Jessie and me. Go, man, fill out the wine. Red wine, red like the faint remembrance of the fire in France. Red wine, like the poppies that spill their petals on the chests of dead men. No, white wine, white, the stillness of the millions that have removed their clamors from the crowd of life. No, red wine, red like the blood that was shed for you and for the many for the commission of sin. Steady on, Harry, and lift up thine eyes unto the hills. What are you all gaping at? So you, Barney, and you, Jessie, make merry of my helplessness in front of my face. In front of my face, you pair of cheats. You couldn't wait till I'd gone, so that my eyes wouldn't see the joy I wanted, hurrying away from me over to another. Heard her breast pulling your hand quick out of her bodice, did you? Saved you in the nick of time, my lady. Did I? Going to enjoy yourselves in the same little couch where she, before you formed an image in her eye, acted the part of an amateur wife, and I the part of an amateur husband. The black couch with the green and crimson butterflies in the yellow bushes, where she and me often tired of the things you're dangling after now. When I wanted to slip away from life, you brought me back with your whispered, think of the tears of Jess, think of the tears of Jess. But Jess has wiped away her tears in the ribbon of your cross. Napoo Barney Bagnall, Napoo Jessie Tate, a merry heart throbs coldly in my bosom. Or is it a cold heart in a merry bosom? Teddy, sing a song, man. Show the stuff you're made of. Dear God, this crippled form is still your child. Dear mother, this helpless thing is still your son. Harry Hegan, me, who on the football field could crash a 12-stone flyer off his feet. For this dear club 3 times I won the cup. And grieving reason I was just too weak this year to play again. And now before I go, I give you all the cup, that silver tassie, to have and to hold forever, evermore. Mangled and bruised as I am bruised and mangled. Hammered free from its commonly shape. Look, there is Jessie writ, and here is Harry, the one name safely separated from the other. Treat it kindly. With care, it may be opened out. For Barney there to drink to Jess, and Jess to drink to Barney. What's in front, we'll face like men. The Lord hath given, and man hath taken away.
Odysseus by Patrick Moore Doherty. In this poem, I've learned the difference between isolation and solitude. I have been home from combat for 10 years. 10 years is how long it took Odysseus to return home. 10 years his beloved Penelope wove and unwove the same tapestry. Like a medic emptying and refilling aid station medical supply chests. Our survival requires us to think in a way that precludes learning. I got stuck in the thinking that way for years. Did you learn to learn again? Did you study war? Did you study other things? What did you learn? You learn what you live.
All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Maria Remarque. It is autumn. There are not many of the old hands left. I am the last of the 7 fellows from our class. Everyone talks of peace and armistice. All wait. If it again proves an illusion, then they will break up. Hope is high. It cannot be taken away again without an upheaval. If there is not peace, then there will be a revolution. I have 14 days rest because I have swallowed a bit of gas. In the little garden, I sit the whole day long in the sun. The armistice is coming soon. I believe it now too. Then we will go home. Here my thoughts stop and will not go any farther. All that meets me, all that floods over me, are but feelings. Greed of life, love of home, yearning for the blood, intoxication of deliverance, but no aims. Had we returned home in 1916, out of the suffering and the strength of our experience, we might have unleashed a storm. Now, if we go back, we will be weary, broken, burnt out, rootless, and without hope. We will not be able to find our way anymore. And men will not understand us. For the generation that grew up before us, though it has passed these years with us, already had a home and a calling. Now it will return to its old occupations and the war will be forgotten. And the generation that has grown up after us will be strange to us and push us aside. We will be superfluous, even to ourselves. We will grow older. A few will adapt themselves. Some others will merely submit. And most will be bewildered. The years will pass by, and in the end we shall fall into ruin. But perhaps all this that I think is mere melancholy and dismay, which will fly away as the dust when I stand once again beneath the poplars and listen to the rustling of their leaves. It cannot be that it has gone. The yearning that made our blood unquiet, the unknown, the perplexing, the oncoming things, the 1,000 faces of the future, the melodies from dreams and from books, the whispers and divinations of women. It cannot be that this has vanished in bombardment, in despair, in brothels. Here the trees show gay and golden. The berries of the rowan stand red among the leaves. Country roads run white out to the skyline. And the canteens hum like beehives with rumors of peace. I stand up. I am very quiet. Let the months and years come. They can take nothing from me. They can take nothing more. I'm so alone and without hope that I can confront them without fear. The life that has borne me through these years is still in my hands and my eyes. Whether I have subdued it, I know not. But so long as it is there, it will seek its own way out, heedless of the will that is within me. He fell in October 1918, on a day that was so quiet and still on the whole front that the army confined itself to the single sentence, all quiet on the Western Front. He had fallen forward and lay on the earth as though sleeping. Turning him over, one saw that he could not have suffered long. His face had an expression of calm, as though almost glad the end had come. A reading from All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Maria Remarque. Considered by many to be the greatest war novel ever written. Erich Maria Remarque served with the 15th Reserve Infantry Regiment of the Imperial German Army.
Good evening. My name is Sophie Pride. I'm reading from Book 23 of Homer's Odyssey as translated by Emily Wilson. In Book 23, Odysseus is finally, truly home. His son has recognized and accepted his father. Now Odysseus will reveal himself to his wife, Penelope. Will she welcome him with open arms, or does she still doubt? Book 23 tells the intimate story of the olive tree bed. I'll begin. Chuckling with glee, the old slave climbed upstairs to tell the queen that her beloved husband was home, so she went downstairs. Her heart could not decide if she should keep her distance, as she was questioning her own dear husband, or go right up to him and kiss his face and hold his hands in hers. She crossed the threshold and sat across from him beside the wall, in firelight. He sat beside the pillar and kept his eyes down, waiting to find out whether the woman who once shared his bed would speak to him. She sat in silence, stunned. Sometimes when she was glancing at his face, it seemed like him, but then his dirty clothes were unfamiliar. Telemachus scolded her. "Mother, cruel, heartless mother, why are you doing this, rejecting father? Why do you not go over, sit beside him, and talk to him? No woman in the world would be so obstinate. To keep your distance from him when he has come back after 20 long years of suffering? Your heart is always harder than rock." But thoughtfully, she answered, "My child, I am confused. I cannot speak or meet his eyes. If this is really him, if my Odysseus has come back home, we have our ways to recognize each other through secret signs known only to us two." Hardened Odysseus began to smile. He told the boy, "You must allow your mother to question me. She will soon know me better. While I am dirty, dressed in rags, she will not treat me with kindness or acknowledge me." Now Eurymene, the slave woman, began to wash strong-willed Odysseus. She rubbed him with olive oil and dressed him in a tunic and handsome cloak. And then Athena poured attractiveness from head to toe and made him taller and stronger, and his hair grew thick and curly as a hyacinth. After his bath, he looked like an immortal. He sat down in the same chair opposite his wife and said, "Extraordinary woman, the gods have given you the hardest heart. No other wife would so reject a husband who had been suffering for 20 years and finally come home. Well, Nanny, make a bed for me so I can rest. This woman must have an iron heart." Penelope said shrewdly, "You extraordinary man! I am not acting proud or underplaying this big event, yet I'm not surprised at how you look. You looked like this the day your long oars sailed away from Ithaca. Now, Eurycleia, make the bed for him outside the room he built himself." She spoke to test him, and Odysseus was furious and told his loyal wife, "Woman, your words have come. Who moved my bed? It would be difficult for even a master craftsman, though a god could do it with ease. No man, however young and strong, could pry it out. There is a trick to how this bed was made. I made it, no one else. Inside the court there grew an olive tree with delicate long leaves, full-grown and green, as sturdy as a pillar, and I built the room around it. I packed stones together and fixed a roof and fitted doors. At last, I trimmed the olive tree and used my bronze to cut the branches off from root to tip, and planed it down and skillfully transformed the trunk into a bedpost. With a drill, I bored right through it. This was my first bedpost, and then I made the other 3, inlaid with gold and silver and with ivory. I stretched ox leather straps across, dyed purple. Now I have told the secret trick, the token. But woman, wife, I do not know if someone, a man, has cut the olive trunk and moved my bed, or if it is still safe." At that, her heart and body suddenly relaxed. She recognized the tokens he had shown her. She burst out crying and ran straight towards him, threw her arms around him, kissed his face, and said, "Do not be angry with me now, Odysseus. In every other way you are a very understanding man. The gods have made us suffer. They refuse to let us stay together and enjoy our youth until we reach the edge of age together. Please forgive me. Do not keep bearing a grudge, because when I first saw you, I would not welcome you immediately. I felt a constant dread that some bad man would fool me with his lies. There are so many dishonest, clever men. Now you have told the story of our bed, the secret that no other mortal knows, except yourself and me, and just one slave, Actress, whom my father gave to me when I came here, who used to guard our room. You made my stubborn heart believe in you. This made him want to cry. He held his love, his faithful wife, and wept. As welcome as the land to swimmers, when Poseidon wrecks their ship at sea and breaks it with great waves and driving winds, a few escape the sea and reach the shore, their skin all caked with brine. Grateful to be alive, they crawled to land. So glad she was to see her own dear husband, and her white arms would not let go his neck. They would have wept until the rosy dawn began to touch the sky. But shining-eyed Athena intervened. She held night back, restraining golden dawn beside the ocean, and would not let her yoke her swift young colts, shining and bright. Odysseus, mind whirling, said, Wife, we have not yet come to the end of all our troubles. There are more to come, many hard labors which I must complete. The spirit of Tiresias informed me that day I went inside the house of Hades to ask about the journey home for me and for my men. But come now, let us go to bed together, wife. Let us enjoy the pleasure of sweet sleep. Penelope, who always thought ahead, said, When you wish, the bed is yours. The gods have brought you home, back to your well-built house. But since a god has made you speak about these future labors, tell me what they involve. I will find out eventually, and better to know now. He answered warily, You really are extraordinary. Why would you make me tell you something to cause you pain? It hurts me too, but I will tell the truth and not hide it from you. Sensibly, Penelope said, If the gods reach old age in comfort, there is hope that there will be an end to all our troubles. Finally, at last, with joy, the husband and the wife arrived back in the rights of their old marriage bed. And when the couple had enjoyed their lovemaking, they shared another pleasure, telling stories.
Ladies and gentlemen, your readers. I'll supply you with a round of applause. So we're hoping that people will remain for our question and answer session. We do have some questions already. If you do have a question for our veterans, our readers, please publish them and just type it in the Q&A section, and then we'll present those questions to the readers directly. We want to thank you all for having attended our workshop today. And, again, this is just an incredible performance by our veterans. Thank you all so much. So why don't we get started with the questions? How does that sound? Okay. So we have 3 questions already and more are coming in. So just give me a moment here. Okay. So now the first question we received is from a woman named Mary. Would any of the actors like to talk about how giving expression to what you know helped you enjoy performing? Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
I learned by reading Achilles in Vietnam by Dr. Shea that what some of us lacked well, most of us lacked when we came home was the communalization of grief. So the talking about our experiences, even metaphorically through drama, is very helpful in healing. But I'll say that.
Would someone else like to offer something? Go ahead, Keith.
In the pieces that I read, I learned how painful moral injury can be. Moral injury stands alone, but it also comes with guilt, shame, and some other negative emotions. These people, the ones that I read, I think, are using writing as a healing tool, and they're doing it as often as they can so they can continue to live a positive, eventful life. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Would someone else like to talk about, how you're giving expression to what you know? Go ahead, Patrick.
The part I enjoyed most about this whole thing is being able to share, not necessarily experiences, but the concept of what it is that we go through and what we deal with when we come home. I feel that it's part of our responsibility as veterans to let people know and help them to understand us rather than expecting them to understand us. So that's what I got out of this thing more than anything else.
I see others shaking their hands. Does someone want to, add to that? Go ahead, Jim.
Very easy to write this story. I told, not a story, it's a true story about Odysseus from the book Odysseus in America, because it was what I lived and was my passion I felt when I came home. And for me to pen that down on a piece of paper came surprisingly, not being a writer, very easily to me. And like Patrick said, I think it's a way of helping us veterans help ourselves, but a way of also helping people understand what the Vietnam War was like. And it took so many years to really get credit for a war that really nobody knew about. But I've learned a lot, and I think writing is a great instrument of expressing yourself and also telling people about the war. Thank you.
Yeah, Rob, go ahead.
That I found really interesting was because, like I said, I'd never read the Odyssey, but you read that and then you hear the other pieces from different wars. And I mean, it's a constant theme. And you would think that after millennia, we could get it right. I don't know if that really makes sense. And the other thing too is, this put into words a lot of what I think we've gone through as well. I guess it helps us to verbalize as well.
Mm-hmm. Sophie, you're nodding your head. You want to add something?
In the piece that I read, recognizing your loved one when they come home, I thought I was fine when I returned from Iraq, but my husband, after some months pointed out that I was always angry, always jumpy, that sort of thing. And one thing that I didn't realize when I deployed is that the spouse at home is also suffering or is also, is worried daily, like Penelope weaves and unweaves the same tapestry, and they're hurting too, Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we've got a bunch of other questions, so let's get them asked. The same person who asked this question just wanted you all to know how very provocative this is, that watching each performer animate through his or her reading gave this respondent a feeling of connection with the experiences that they describe, may even have had themselves. And Jim McGowan, you received a bow for such a moving creation. Okay. So let's move on to another question. How many wars are represented by these narrators? How many different wars do you guys imagine you were talking about? That's something we hadn't thought about very much at all. How many different? Keith?
Afghanistan and Iraq, I talked about. That's it.
Okay, that's 2. Are there others? Yeah, Ra? 3.
Actually, I think it's Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, World War One. Was it the Crimean War? Was that one of them? For the and then Achilles, and then translations. That was like the 1799 thing. So about 7.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot of different conflicts. Barry, can we hear you? We were having such a hard time hearing you. Oh yeah, your volume is out. Do you think you could log off and log back on and join us? Unfortunately, yeah, we can't hear we can't hear you speak. You could also join. Yeah, is that all right? I think that'll be okay. Meanwhile, Patrick, you want to add something?
Sure. Granted, we all talked about individual wars that these pieces were written about and so on. But the unique thing is that everything that we read tonight can be applied to any war that has ever come before, and probably any war that's going to come after. Okay?
And
the tools change, but the wars stay the same. Okay? So that's my take on it. So.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Jim. Jim?
I agree with Patrick. Though my writing on Odysseus and my piece was on the Vietnam War, but that can be applied to any soldier that was in combat in any war. A post-traumatic stress disorder was called many different things. In World War II, he was shell-shocked, but the titles are the same. Whether you're shell-shocked or post-traumatic stress disorder, the titles are intertwined. They're just different titles for a different war. But I think everybody who read today, and like Patrick said, definitely could apply to any war, whether it be World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Afghanistan War, Desert Storm. Any soldier in combat could understand and relate the stories that every one of these men and women told today.
Okay. Yeah, and I can totally recognize that, and I can sense how deeply you feel this, Jim. Thank you for that. I want to ask another question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Barry.
What I was about to say was, it doesn't matter the numbers of wars, it's every war. That's the experience that I think everybody was sharing. The Roman soldier, War of the Roses.
No. Barry's having a really difficult time. It is raining. I don't know if everyone else is experiencing.
Every single soldier was talking about.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Barry. So I have other questions. We've got a bunch of other questions. So let's move on. So Felicia Zimmer is asking, wants you to know what a wonderful performance, and congratulations to you all. Do any of the actors feel a personal connection to any of the characters that they portrayed? Go ahead, Patrick. Your hand was up first. And then I'll get to everyone else. Okay?
Part of the reason Michael and I decided for me to do the Silver Tassie was that there are some parallels between the character and myself. I'm from Dublin, and the lead character in the play is a Dubliner set in Dublin. He was fighting in the British Army. I fought in the U.S. Army. There were other parallels too. So yes, there is a connection to that particular one for me. Not so much with the O'Flaherty piece, but we decided that we stick with the Irish thing.
I remember that conversation. I do. I remember that conversation. So Jim and then Rob.
I feel a very strong connection because the story I told was about me, my homecoming, and trying to compare it to Odysseus' travels. But yeah, there's a very strong connection.
And Rob, you wanted to offer something?
Well, yeah, I mean, because when we were going through the text, looking for something that hit me, I guess, it was definitely Telemachus, of course, because I had mentioned before my father had died when I was a kid, so I had no memory of him. And then, so him looking for his father and asking for any tale, that I identified with, and then also with Guarini and Nestor, he reminded me of first sergeant that I had, who was kind of, at least when I was reading it, like he was kind of crusty, but definitely thoughtful and wise.
Mm-hmm. So this is a good segue into our next question. Hold on, I just had it. Where did it go? Our next question. Just a second. How did you choose? This is from a gentleman named John. How did you choose what writings to use? Actually, she, her. How did you choose what writings? So, Keith, you want to let us know?
Okay. All of my writings were chosen from warrior writers that Sue Lin gave me. I didn't know what direction to go in, and I searched for that book because I knew there was something in it that I needed. As I was going through the table of contents, I found anything that said homecoming, coming home, returning, and Sue Lin, she gave me the book and I had to use it. I used it before, but I wanted to use it specifically for this.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So, Sue Lin, we haven't heard much from you tonight, so can you let us know how you chose Book 16 of the Odyssey?
Oh, I chose Book 16 because it has the three homecomings. The one that I really like is I see these on TV, these homecomings of soldiers to their dogs, and so there's the dogs that pant instead of running away and barking, and the father and the son and Telemachus to Eumaeus, and I really felt a connection to the part where Telemachus does not recognize his father Odysseus, because when I came home from Desert Storm, my daughter didn't recognize me, so I kind of felt a little connection there.
Wow, that's a terrific story, Sue Lin. Thank you so much for sharing that. Jim, you want to add more?
Segments of Odysseus that I could really relate to. First of all, of course, when Circe turned Odysseus's crew into pigs, I could relate to America trying to turn all Vietnam combat soldiers into baby killers. But more importantly, Odysseus, when he came home, he hid in his beggar's roost. He hid as a beggar for a while. He wasn't recognized. A lot of Vietnam veterans did the same thing. They came home, but they didn't wear their uniform. They hid in civvies because they were afraid to wear. They didn't want to be recognized because it was such a divisive war. They would get spit on, or you had to fight if you went downtown Philly. I mean, so we actually hid in our beggars' roost, our civvies. We didn't want to wear proudly our Vietnam uniform.
Do you guys agree with that? I mean, in my experience, veterans often hide. Joe, you want to add to that?
we're counting up the wars, I thought there was one more that we didn't mention, the war when we came home, the war with shame that was imposed on us. And it's so that's part of it. And so I'm sorry. What was the question again?
We were talking about how you made the decisions to, for the readings. Right? How you chose readings.
Michael helped me a lot, exposed me to quite a bit, and I've always liked E. Cummings, and Dulce et Decorum Est rang true to me, and All Quiet on the Western Front, very much so. The whole tone of it, because he's such a young man, and the carnage of the war is just incredible, and it's combat, and so it resonated with me as well. So, and my uncle was a World War One veteran, and he was gassed, and I was when he came home, he was around a lot with my mom and dad. So, I wanted to say something about that.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Joe. Does someone else want to offer a comment about how they made their selection? Like what led up to their selection? Go ahead, Sophie.
Well, I have you. Thanks. The wonderful Ms. Max Brown recommended book 23, The Olive Tree Bed, for me. And it's just fantastic. I mean, this entire translation, I think we all really, truly enjoyed it. And this story is just a terrific story of homecoming. Thank you.
Well, you read it so wonderfully, so perfectly, Sophie. Thank you for that. I mean, my heart melts every time I hear it. Yeah, it's just a terrific, and it's also just a terrific story. It's just such a true and terrific story. So we have some other questions. So one question is, how did you find such a fantastic group of vets? I don't know. I don't know. But I do recall, I remember we talked about it with Michael, and I do remember asking different friends and people who work with and deeply support veterans if they knew someone who would be interested. I also trolled the list of people who've worked with Eternal Soldier in the past, and that's how I found Patrick. And of course, Sue Lynn was just terrific in recommending other veterans to us who, she thought might find this interesting. And so she single-handedly was really responsible for bringing several of our cast members together. So yeah, I just want to say thank you all for that. You guys were just so wonderful. So let's see, what's the next question? A young woman says, bravo and congratulations to all. These were very moving performances. Thank you for sharing yourselves and your experiences with us. How was the theme of homecoming chosen? Is a good question. So you want to go ahead, Patrick? Go ahead.
That was on you.
I didn't want to say it, but it's
I got an email that said, this is what we're doing, this is what it's going to be about, are you in? And I was like, okay.
But I also think that it's one of those themes that, from the other work that we've done, that Eternal Soldier has done with veterans, homecoming is often one of those themes that has fingers that, like tentacles, that move into other areas. And it's also something that some veterans can do relatively quickly, and other veterans, like Odysseus, it takes them decades to truly feel that they are at home. And so because there's such complexity surrounding that and such a variety as well. I mean, you guys have shown us how much variety within homecoming there is. And so that was another reason that it seemed appropriate for this. I'm open to suggestions if there are other themes that we should explore just as deeply. So just let me know. Go ahead, Keith. Your hand was up, and then Patrick.
Let's talk about homecoming. Homecoming to me means reintegration. Along with that reintegration comes rebirth. And lastly, a new beginning. In this life, we have more than one new beginning. In this story, homecoming is one of those new beginnings. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with that. I see others nodding their heads. I think we're all in agreement with that. Patrick, you wanted to add something?
I think homecoming or the concept of it is overlooked a lot of times when people want to know about who we are and what we've done. They're more interested in the stories and all the other stuff, and they have loads of questions, but nobody ever asks you how you're doing now that you're home. And like Keith said, many of us have had more than one homecoming. I've had several where I went right back to work in whatever unit I was in, and to get ready for the next time I deployed. So there really wasn't a homecoming. It wasn't until I was completely out that I even started to deal with the aspect of homecoming. So there are different homecomings, and for many of us, there's several different homecomings. So I agree with Keith. Okay.
Wow. Michael, we haven't heard much from you today as the director. How did you feel about the theme of homecoming?
Well, you and I discussed it, I think, back in July when we and about how there are several different types of homecoming. There's the grieving, there's the anger, there's a loving homecoming. There's all different versions of homecoming, and each one is the same. Just speaking for myself, and I know, having talked a lot with Jim McGowan and Joe McElroy, us three Vietnam veterans in the group, that you can never fully come home. There's just a part of you that is always still back in that Southeast Asian jungle, and full integration is really difficult because of the particular nature of that war. Although this is I also think this is true of any war where you're thrown into intensive combat experiences, loss of friends, traumatic experiences, etc., etc. But there's always a part of one's soul that is missing, and it is back there, and it's retrievable to a degree. My little path was retrieving through creative theater and writing. And I consider myself very lucky to have access to those.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, working with these wonderful veterans here on these readings, I learned so much from them about myself, as much as about different aspects of war, homecoming, etc. It's quite a remarkable experience for me, and I thank you all deeply.
Rob, you want to add something?
And because for the audience, I guess I didn't realize, they weren't in our conversations that we had leading up to this. And I remember when I was looking for that reading, and I was telling you guys, for me, the homecoming or the possibility of coming home, even though, like Patrick said, you weren't all, we were coming back and going right back out. But the one thing that I had my first time is that, the idea that I was dead when I went over, it's a morbid thought, but when you're in your teens or in your 20s like I was, and you write out your will, that's something that I don't think a lot of civilians have to do. And then, also, I knew if I were killed, I got, my family got $250,000, for my life insurance. 20-something kid shouldn't really, you shouldn't think about that. But that is what we understand. And I remember that. I remember coming back. I remember being surprised when we were, you leave and you go back to your staging area, whether it was, Bagram or it was Kuwait. And then all of a sudden it's like, then you got to go back to reality, almost back to life, and the other thing is, of course, while you're gone, life goes on.
Right. Right. And all of that is personified with Telemachus in many ways. So yeah, I can see that even more so. Yeah. So we have another question. This is from Margie Lindham. It says, while there's nothing to compare with live theater, are there other books or films that you each feel express truths about war or homecoming that you'd like the audience to know about? Jim? Oh, wait, hold on. Jim, we can't hear you just yet.
Not so much about the homecoming, but I think that documentary that a public broadcasting station had about the Vietnam War, and it had interviews on both sides, the North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese. It's a great documentary. You want to understand the war truly.
Yeah,
it shows you about homecoming on both sides of the fence. Sometimes we think about our homecoming, but everybody, including the other countries, have homecoming. And you know what? What I've learned, they want to get home as bad as you do. And I think that documentary is a powerful documentary.
I think it's a Ken Burns documentary, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes, it is.
So, does someone else, Rob, other material that you think illustrates homecoming besides what you chose?
Definitely. I don't know if the Vietnam vets know the author. What's his name? Tim O'Brien, or The Things They Carried, and If I Die in a Combat Zone were really good books. And that's more about Vietnam. More understand that.
Someone else want to offer, another type of material other than what you read that illustrates homecoming for you? All right, why don't we move on to our next question, which is still a really, really good question, okay? For Joe and others, how does a veterans organization such as the American Legion help with your return? I know you are as a Vietnam veteran, and thank you for your service. And this is from a gentleman named Peter. So how does a veterans organization help with your return? Joe, you want to offer something? Since this initially is designed for you.
Yeah, thank you. Again, it's the communalization of grief in a way that you're with your brothers who have experienced exactly what you went through. And so in the sharing of doing good things and working together, there's a healing going on. And so it's important. And I think all the different organizations try to accomplish that. And they want to do well, to do good things for their community as well. So, and I find it very helpful. I've been a member since 88, I think. Yeah. I think Jim McGowan wanted to say something.
Do others? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to accent the same thing Joe said, the commonality of people you meet there. And that doesn't mean everybody you meet there you have something common with. I've always found it was easier for me to talk to actual combat soldiers than it is to talk about just a soldier. And that's no disrespect to any soldier who serves this country. But it's for me, the commonality of meeting other combat soldiers was sort of a therapy in itself, and it really helped.
Patrick?
Two things. Joe said he joined in '85. When did you leave Vietnam? So it took him quite a few years before he transitioned and was able to go and do something like that. As a current era vet, let's just put it that way. I've been involved with several veterans groups, and one of the biggest issues we're finding with the younger soldiers is they're not joiners. They're not ready. It's going to take them 8, 10, 12, 14 years, maybe longer, before they feel that they want to reach out and get involved with these things. And as more senior veterans, as I consider myself, I'm in my 50s. I feel it's our responsibility to try and go find those younger vets and get them into these organizations so that we can help them, or they can help themselves, whichever way you want to look at it. Some of the veterans organizations are really good. Some are good. I've had a couple of bad experiences with some, but at least they're there trying to help. Like VFW and the Legion and groups like that. There's a big void, basically, between the guys that are coming home now and the guys that have been there for 20, 30 years, because they don't speak the same language. And there is a gap. It's hard for the Vietnam vets to understand a lot of what we talk about, because the language we use today is the language they used then. And I'm not talking about slang. I'm talking about the military language. So what I'd like to say is, if any of you are involved with groups and you know a young soldier that's come home, or a Marine or airman or whatever they are, reach out to them. Try and get them to come at least have lunch or something at the VFW or the American Legion, whatever it is. All right, that's all I got to say.
Go ahead, Barry. Oh no, Barry, your voice is out yet again. Oh no. How about this, Barry, can you type your response in the chat and then I'll read it for everybody? Okay? That's the easy way. That's a workaround. Rav, go ahead.
Actually in the VFW up here by me, and I'm the adjutant, so it's basically the recording secretary. And I'm one of the, when I meet people, I do that. I try to get them in. Even older people too. What I find, and it's always a big issue with the old guard and the young Turks coming up, is this idea that, and I keep trying to tell them to recruit, let's get out there. Let's, when we're, today we had a ceremony and there were people there, but it was all the same people that are always there. We don't do the reach out that I try to get, because I remember hearing from the Vietnam vets, a lot of them wouldn't join those groups because of the World War II vets, because of how they treated them. And there's still, even some Vietnam vets that I know, they still won't join the VFW ever. So I stopped asking. But the other thing too is that, you get involved, and I tell the guys this now. I say, do you want a veterans organization or do you want a social club?
Right. Well, Barry has a good point, Rob, that I think you might have some comment on. He pointed out how many were drafted versus volunteer enlistees, and do you think that affects their joining of groups like yours?
The fact that, like, a lot of the ones that still have the old guard in charge aren't community groups. They're not out in the community, and that's, like, they do them, like my post in Andalusia. They do the Ben Salem Memorial Day Parade, and that's pretty much it. Whereas, I think young people from my generation, the Generation X, Y, and the Millennials, I think that we all are kind of like do-it-yourself type of people who try to get, they look for, I guess, ways that they can solve all the problems, you know. And they can go online because there's an online community. I mean, that's like one of the other. I'm in the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. That's online. We never had meetings, and we find the causes. And the other two with my post, for instance, is recruiting minorities. That's a lot of them just don't want to do it. They don't, and that's another thing. Yeah.
Does someone else want to comment on what they think is going on with the modern generation? Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I want to bring up what Rob said. I think he's absolutely right. In the 60s, when I got home, in the late 60s, the VFW post, and he's right, the World War II veterans, they didn't want you because, and this is sad to say, but they would say, well, you weren't really in a real war because it wasn't a declared war. It was a conflict. And that was that mindset. And when you think, how do you argue with that type of mindset? You might as well argue with the bottle of water I'm drinking here. I mean, how do I argue? How do I argue with that? So that's why a lot of the Vietnam veterans didn't join.
Right. I hear what you're saying. So we're coming up to the top of the hour. Okay. And we have one remaining question that we haven't dealt with, but it is like, a real culminating question. So this person who's anonymous said, just a great performance by all. This was very personal and thought-provoking. My question, or perhaps my commentary, is, do we think the human race will ever figure out how not to go to war? And I think we should hear from each of you because you've served. Patrick, you want to go first?
Absolutely not. Human rights continue until there's none of us left. We're the only animal on the planet that does it as well as we do it. We're the only animal on the planet that does it for any other reason than survival. We've been doing it since we began, and we're talking millennia, and we're still going to do it. And people say, "Oh, I can't do this and I can't do that." When you're put in the right situation, you'd be surprised what you can do. And humans just don't get it. It's that simple.
Okay. Does someone else want to add whether they think the human race will ever figure out how not to go to war? Go ahead, Joe.
I don't think it's possible either that we'll stop fighting. Because I'm kind of the religious sort. It's like it's been going back a long time. Cain slew Abel. We got original sin working against us, and it's our human flaw. So, and we have a right to defend ourselves. So, and men are aggressive, and it's an ongoing problem. I don't really. Of course, if we deal with the Creator and we have a relationship with Him or her, love being the overriding theme of life and everything. If we ever get to a good relationship with that love, then perhaps. But that's what we pray for. But that's all.
That's all you want. So let's hear from the women veterans among you. Sophie, would you like to offer a comment on whether you think the human race will ever figure out how not to go to war?
Hi. Unfortunately, I don't. I think the answer is no. But in this computer age now that we've got a lot of hope, people learning about different cultures, nationalities, making friends. Look at the Arab Spring. That all happened because of, they had cell phones and video and were able to capture a lot of these things. So through diplomacy, we have a shot. Through more love, religion, your choice. I think we all go to the same place, one way or the other. and and that's, hopefully that'll help. Thank you.
Dulin, would you like to offer a comment about, the human race? And
I have some fragmented comments about that. First, service members don't decide whether we go to the war, and sometimes when we go to the war, our nation is trying to help other nations, and part of that is like peace at any price is no peace at all. We could just let other people just suffer, but that's not up to us anyway. So I think no, that if that wouldn't necessarily be a good thing if we stopped helping other countries.
Jim, your hand was up. Oh, hold on. Hold on for a second. I think our moderator had to step away for a second. I'll bring you up. Okay, there you go. Go ahead, Jim.
All right, I agree basically with what everybody said. Do I think we'll live in a peaceful world? No. Ever since Cain killed Abel, we've been fighting. Wars have been a product of our human nature. We're the only species on the planet that actually kill each other. Animals do kill each other once in a while for food or protect their loved ones, but we are a unique species. And we read about a lot of great books, Odysseus, we read about war now, and we try to figure out not how to repeat the past. But until we start reading the only book, the Bible, I don't think even reading that, we will never stop fighting. But I think it'll be a good start. I guess we're not meant to have a peaceful earth right now. But no, the bottom line is history has shown that we're going to repeat the same mistakes we made again because greed, power, dominance, and oppression is the way of many a people. And until that ends, and I don't see it ending, I think, yes, we'll always have war.
Michael, do you want to add something? I saw you nodding your head.
Of a quote from a wonderful novel by a gentleman named John Knowles, who wrote a novel called A Separate Peace.
Yeah.
And it's really about young men going to like a very posh private school up in New England. But there's a great line in it near the end because one of the there's high school students really in this private school, and one quits school and goes off to World War II. And he's killed, and it's a shock to all the rest of the students back in the school. He was only 17, 18 years old, and didn't really have a chance to live much of life. But Knowles wrote this line that wars are not, how does it go now? Wars are not caused by different generations and their particular stupidities, but rather caused by something evil in the hearts of men. And it may just be, Knowles doesn't say this, but, there may just be a reasonable emphasis on men rather than women doing that.
Wow, that's a profound statement.
Women can start wars, but
but they don't. Right. So again, we're just about at the top of the hour. How about we let everyone end by saying their name and rank? Okay, so we'll start off. On my screen, I have a bunch of people. So Sophie, you're first. Name and rank.
Oh, great. And serial number? Sophie Pride, Army Nurse Corps captain.
Okay. Joe?
States Army.
Michael?
Army of the United States no longer exists. I was Spec 4, acting Jack.
Patrick?
U.S. Army Sergeant.
Dulin?
Dulin Hingley, Sergeant, Army.
Rob?
Rob Gerchev, U.S. Army, Sergeant.
And Jim?
Jim McGowan, U.S. Army, Sergeant.
And thank you, everyone. That concludes our program for this evening. You can check out our website, eternalsoldier.org.